Hi, my name is Kelly, and today we're going to talk about how I write my Substack. So first things first, I filmed this whole video and it was so dark and cloudy out, and now it's a little bit brighter. So we're going to redo the intro, just to keep it honest. And then we're going to switch back to the old corner where the lighting wasn't as good, but the points were really good. So we'll keep it with that. My name is Kelly Track. I'm a two-time author. I write every week on Substack under my Substack called A Year of Joy. And today I want to sort of take you behind the scenes of how I write a post, how I find the time to write, and a little bit of lessons I've learned along the way about getting work done, getting stuff out of the drafts, getting things published and posted, and getting into the mood to write. Writing is such a craft and such an art and takes a lot of time. So I want to give you some of my best tips and tricks today. A couple quick things before we get started. This is it. This is the desk. This is the space. It's really bare in here. As I flip to the next lens, I'm going to go into the corner where the lighting was a little bit better before the light turned around. But it's just this IKEA manual table. As you will see in a bit, I prop up my computer on like a makeshift box, and this is the computer I work from. This is my mug I'm currently enjoying. It is from Anthropology. I thrifted it for $1. It says Hotel Magique, and it says call me. I love that it says call me. I think that's just really cute. I Googled the brand because I was curious about it, and it was some people who made up a fake hotel and made a bunch of merch for it called Hotel Magique, and I just thought that was super darling and super cute. So this is my coffee mug today. Let's dive in. Oh, last but not least, this is a shirt I love. I thrifted it recently in Portugal when I went to Lisbon. It is Falconable, I think is how you say it. It's a French brand. They were telling me that it's basically like the vintage French version of Ralph Lauren. And I don't know, I fell in love with it. I love a good striped shirt. I feel like when I have a striped shirt on, it just, I don't know, it puts me in the mood to write. I love a men's button up. What can I say? It's just, I don't know. It just is. It's just the vibe. It's just the mood. So let's get into today's video. We're going to begin with a bit of a show and tell. I have my lamp on. This is a lamp I got from my mom. My mom got this at a garage sale. It's super 90s. I love turning it on, and I love this lamp because when I turn it on, I feel like I'm instantly in a Nancy Meyers movie, and I am, especially when I've got my blue light blocking glasses on. This is just a thrifted Burberry case, but it makes it more fun to put them in there. As you can tell, a key theme is fun. Fun and joy is a very big common theme in my creative work and my process, and for a reason, because it brings the energy on a day like this. The desk is right here. The desk has nothing on it. The walls basically have nothing on it. It's extremely sparse in here. I kind of like it like that because it keeps my head clear. It's a very basic IKEA manual crank sit and stand desk. And on that desk, I have, let's do a thing. Let's do show and tell. I have the MacBook. I've written a lot of stuff on her. I love the kind of the pink. So there's her. I use an old school mouse. I thrifted this mouse for $8. As you can tell, I put this like this so that I can wind it all up and take it on the go. And when I'm writing, I want to use the mouse. I'm just faster on a mouse. So another big thing is in my head, sometimes I like to think I need everything to be beautiful and perfectly aesthetic before I start. And that is so not true. I always like to challenge myself when I feel like I need a perfect mouse to do my work. I'm like, nope, we're just gonna roll with the one that was literally $1 at the thrift store and works. So I use an old school mouse. I use a piece of paper. This is my mouse pad. This is an old scrap from an agenda. I like it because it's super lightweight and I can take it when I'm on the go, and I can write if I'm traveling for work. This just gets thrown in. I like it because it's lightweight. It's also a neutral tone. My wireless keyboard, I need this. And then this is just literally a wine box, as you can see. And I put some extra like white tissue paper on it to kind of hide some of the branding, but it's just a box. It's super lightweight. I can put it up and down, and the computer sits on here. That's my setup. I like to kind of always make that clear The chair, this is a chair we got at a garage sale when I was growing up. It's my favorite because it's super comfortable. And I, once again, am a practical person. And I always like to kind of go back to this concept from Pablo Picasso, who said, and kind of shared this sort of notion about writing on the napkins. And he did work on napkins. And it's like, if Pablo Picasso can draw on the back of a napkin, like, you don't really need the latest iMac. You don't need the fanciest setup. You don't really need any of that to produce your best work and your genius. You can kind of use what you got. And I'm a really big believer in that because it reduces friction in terms of getting it off the ground and actually getting the work done and moving forward with implementation. That's the most important thing. Like, execution and getting it done is key. So you want to remove those sort of barriers to entry with your creative work in using what you have on hand, being really resourceful, not spending a lot of money on things. I could obviously upgrade my setup quite significantly, but you know, every time I kind of think about that, I'm kind of like, well, then I would want to change a million other things. You know what I mean? I believe it's the Diderot effect in marketing. When you change one thing, you want to change more things, and one purchase leads to more purchases, and then you want to make over the whole office. Or I could catch my brain and be like, I could also just sit down and write this Substack. Because 99% of the time when I'm off thinking about improving my office space, it's because I'm procrastinating on writing the Substack or procrastinating on the work at hand. So that's also why I like to sort of rein myself in and use what I have, because it forces me to stay on track with the work and actually do the work. Because that's what makes you better, is the butt and seat time to write. So another thing I wanted to share with you is not being too precious about getting into the routine of doing the work. So I like to have little things in place that I can always replicate to kind of get me into the habit of writing. A lot of that is just listening to the same playlist on repeat. Right now it's just exclusively Spanish guitar instrumental. I will just listen to that again and again and again. When I wrote Love Letters I Can't Send, it was this Taylor Swift playlist I made, just again and again and again. It was actually funny because I was in a spin class and they played, what song did they play? I believe it was Cardigan, but I heard that song and something in my brain went, oh my gosh, I'm in the mood to write. Like literally in that class. And I realized, oh yeah, that's because I've been building this habit. When my brain hears this song, it thinks, oh, it's time for Kelly to write. So pick something you can implement wherever you go. For some writers, that is like chewing a piece of gum and listening to the same playlist, because you can do that at home, but you can do that in a hotel room, or you can do that when you are traveling for work and you just have your laptop. But I would recommend picking like 1 or 2 anchors. Usually for me, it's a coffee. We're doing the habit loop, cue, habit, reward, of getting, coffee. If I want to play some music, then my brain's starting to think, now it's time to write. The Spanish guitar is on, we've got the coffee, we're about to do it. I would think about that for you as well. Like, what are like 2 little things you could do to sort of set the routine and sort of prime your brain into thinking, okay, we're going to start our work now. But I encourage you not to be too precious about this. One of the tips I learned from one of my friends, we were living in the same level of the dorm in college together, and she was an Olympic swimmer. She at the time was training to be a part of Team Canada and swim at the Olympics. And she did get that goal, and she did get to swim at the Olympics, and it was very fun to watch her in that journey. But I remember asking her, like, what do you eat for breakfast? Like, do you always have the same like go-to breakfast before you train? Or like, what do you eat when it's race day? And I remember being so curious about her habits and rituals before race day. And she said something very fascinating to me. And she said, I don't like to always rely on the same breakfast, because if I'm racing in another country and I don't have that one ingredient, I don't want to feel like my success is dependent on that. And being like, oh no, I didn't get the banana in my oatmeal today, and so now like the day is botched. I thought that was fascinating and very smart. So I take that a lot into my practice. Basically, sort of this feeling, even as you can see in my instruments that I use to write, I kind of just need the bare minimum to get up and go. I don't want to feel like, oh, because I didn't have X, I can't achieve Y. You want to sort of have that sort of lean mindset, that sort of like, lean startup approach. My background is obviously in business, but you want to have that sort of that mindset of, I don't need a lot to get started. And sort of going back to that Pablo Picasso quote, It's okay if it's the back of a napkin, I can make it work. Like, your genius comes from you, not from anything else. So take that into consideration when you write. Don't be too precious about the setup, what you're wearing, the perfect mood and environment, because it almost never happens. Virtually never. And if you're waiting for the right conditions, they will never be met. So we want to kind of work with what you got so we can sort of get stuff off the ground. Okay, so back to the Substack. I'm ready to write. I've got some basic things in place. You know, maybe the music's going, I've got a coffee, and now what? Well, on my computer, I have an ongoing list of ideas. I like to always have lists of what is kicking around in my head. I have no shortage of ideas. It's like a 24/7, you know, old school, you know, when you have the paper towel roll, like hotline, I have that for ideas. It's like nonstop ideas. So you want to get them all in one spot. You always want, as a writer, to have everything in one spot. This is a tip I learned from one of my smartest friends in college who got scooped up by Google immediately and still works at Google. But he had shared with me back in college, he's like, you know, Kelly, he's like, it's always good to have a little notebook where you write down all your ideas and sort of make a habit of writing down your ideas every day. I never forgot that. He was so wise, even in college. I don't know what I was doing in college, but not that. I wasn't like, how shall I enhance my creative process through writing down ideas? You know what I mean? But he definitely was thinking that way. And it's a tip I've garnered from him, is to have a home where all of the ideas live. All of the thoughts around what I want to write or anything or titles all go into the same document. And then when it's time for me to write, I look at the document that has all of the ideas. So there's usually, like, as of right now, there's probably a working list of 15 things I've been kicking around, mostly titles. I kind of usually start a Substack post with a title. I just keep a list of, I'm out in the world and I think of a funny slogan, I think of a cool title, I see something and then I want to make like a funny kind of comeback. All that kind of bits of copy and creativity goes into the doc. And then I look at the doc, and this is the most important thing. I see which of these titles is the most catchy. In my lens, writing and catchiness is key. It has to be key. It's what is the thing on the page that jumps out to you the most. So if you've got a list of 12 titles or 12 potential Substack ideas, go with the one that is the best. Go with the one that's most exciting to you. That is the best way to get like your best kind of work, because you're kind of using your intuition as to what's most thrilling for you, what's most fun, what's most alluring. So for example, in my list, if I go to the list right now, I can already see titles that pop. This is another tip. Sorry, as you can tell, I have a bazillion tips. In marketing or advertising, if you have a whiteboard and you evaluate all the brand names up on the whiteboard, or you put all the slogans, one will stick out. One will really stick out visually. And that's the best way to find what's the strongest and what catches the eye. That's why I like the word catchy, because it literally grabs and catches your attention. And you want to do that with your titles. Okay, so here's one that I love. One is just straight up your dad's garage playlist. I saw this as like a theme for a spin class. I was like, that's such a good title. But I just love that. That sticks out in the list, your dad's garage playlist, because we all know what that means. Anyways, when I go through here, what else? This is a strong title, Atlantic Salmon, a copywriting case and naming a fake fish. That was something I was sort of riffing on. Oh, this is my favorite here, obviously, because it sticks out to me a ton. It says, if I was Jeff Bezos, I'd buy all of these well-packaged sauces at Whole Foods right now. And it's sort of a post inspired by all the packaging that I'm loving at Whole Foods. But as you can see, I might have a list of 20, but those 3 really popped out to me right now in terms of, ooh, I would click that, I would read that. I'm always thinking in the lens of the reader. What would I click on? What would I be interested to know? What would pique my interest? What would catch my attention? I would use that to decide which post to write next, using your excitement to guide you. Excitement is such a key piece of business and writing. If you are excited to write it, you will write it. If you don't really care and you're like, or you're just sort of doing it because you feel like you should, don't write it. Just write the stuff you feel like you just want to sit down and do. It has to have that alluring quality to it. I talk about that in PS You're a Genius as well with business ideas, because quite often people have a lot of business ideas for what they want to start. Pick the thing that is most exciting. So Back to the point, make your list of everything you've got kicking around your head, and then pick the one that is bouncing off the page the most and you are most excited to write. That is how you pick what to write next. Now, you might naturally be wondering, how exactly do I find the time to write? The Substack is consistently and fully written through chunks of time. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here. And if you stitch together enough of those chunks, you get the entirety of A Year of Joy written by Kelly Track. I kid you not, I did that all through chunks of time because that's what I'm working with now. When I wrote P.S. You're a Genius and Love Letters I Can't Send, that was back in when I ran my consultancy practice full time. And 3 years ago now, I wanted to pivot my role and pivot my work and look to go in-house. I now have a full-time corporate job. I've been doing it for the last 2 years, the same role, and I'm enjoying it very much. That also helps. That gives me some energy back because I have extra energy to do some of the creative work I want to do because I'm not fully drained at the end of the day by a job I feel misaligned with. So that's a big help. But I am stitching together like my 30-minute lunch break. If I'm on my day off and I have a call with a consulting client, because I still do my consulting on the side and all my creative writing on the side. If I'm waiting for a call and they're late, I'm opening up the Substack, I'm making a draft post, I'm putting together, choosing a title. If I'm waiting for a friend to join me for coffee, I'm looking through my camera roll for images, maybe going through back photos. I have a lot of like pictures and stuff I've saved that I've kept for like inspiration of like silly signs, good marketing, good packaging, good branding, something kooky. That's the kind of stuff I'm like, oh yeah, I know that's in the camera roll somewhere. Like, let me go fish it out for a future post. That's the kind of stuff I'll pick up in all those spare chunks of time. And that's kind of what you're working with as an adult. I love this book and I always reference it from Gretchen Rubin. It's called The Four Tendencies and it's about finding your accountability style. You're basically good at upholding external accountability or internal accountability or both or none. And it's kind of like the shapes of the diamond. And she gives you things to do for each type. I highly recommend that book. It's a book I've passed off to a lot of clients. When I get clients to work with me, I usually get them to take that quiz that I know their accountability style. A lot of the time it's people who need external accountability because they're coming to me to get them like supported with their, I'm doing marketing freelance work for them and I'm helping them implement and build and strategize, etc. But I am good at setting goals for myself for the day. So when I wrote P.S. You're a Genius or Love Letters I Can't Send, I had a goal of either 4 hours of work per day or 2,000 words, one of those two. And I would track my success in my agenda, pen and paper, of like word count at the start of the day, word count at the end of the day. Or I would track in Toggle, which is a free app. I just have the free version. And I would just track, log, when am I writing? When am I taking a break? And I would track but in seat time. And 4 hours of writing translates to about an 8-hour workday because I would clock out for walks, breaks, bathroom, lunch, etc. It was like super razor focus on how much time am I spending actually like writing or doing something writing adjacent, like brainstorming, plot, etc. But not, I was really honest with myself. And that's how I was able to track progress and see. And I got a really great graph chart at the end showing me how many hours went into Love Letters I Can't Send, which went into a Substack post. But regardless, now I don't have like open stretches of time anymore. Now that I have a full-time corporate job, I am stitching together pieces and adding them up. And this was a tip I got from Beth O'Leary, who wrote The Flat Share. She's a UK writer. The Flat Share is one of my favorite rom-coms. It's witty, it's funny, it's clever, and it got picked up for film and it got adapted, I believe, by Amazon. And Beth O'Leary in an interview was talking about how before she was a full-time author and she had a full-time job, she mostly wrote her books on the tube to and from work. And I thought, damn, if she can write books like with that no BS, no excuses attitude on the go to work, I can start doing my creative work in moments and pockets of time, because it will never come when the seas part and you have like 3 days wide open of nothing for you to do all of this creative work you've been meaning to do. So it's about sort of stealing back pockets of time and being protective of the time you do have. I wrote a very in-depth post on Substack about 2 posts. One, about how to get your creative project done, like a real A to Z guide on getting it out the door. And then B, how I do my creative work plus a full-time job. And those both have a myriad of tips and strategies I use on a daily basis. But that's sort of my biggest tip with the Substack and my creative writing is being really diligent about those pockets of time and not squandering it. That's what works for me. So I want to show you a little bit of how I'm editing and writing. First and foremost, I love to use templates. So this is a template here that I copy and paste. If I click into it, you can see that it's kind of got a template of the title, the blurb I like to use, and the call to action I have to subscribe. That just saves me a ton of time when editing, and that way I can just sort of whip open the template and write and go. One more quick note on the topic of time. When I started Substack, it was primarily around the idea of sharing these catchy, quirky things I find online and kind of explaining why it works, why the marketing has caught my eye, etc. And it's this series that I do. And I initially was very overwhelmed by the idea of starting a Substack and posting consistently. But the way in which I got myself to do this was basically telling myself that these could be extremely short and extremely to the point. So for example, if we click into this latest one, clicking into this whole post took me, 20 minutes to put it together. And that's the beauty of it. You can really make your writing projects small and your posts can be very short and it doesn't have to be this long winding thing. So I just literally took pictures of this chocolate bar and then I write down why I like it. As you can see, we just kind of go through and then I talk about why it works and I'm using the template and then we have subscribe. So this is pretty easy to put together when you have the template set up and you're excited about what to write and you just take some pictures and then boom, that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be hard and you can make your writing really, really short and condensed. So when I'm coming to sit down and edit, I'm usually cutting as much as I can. If you are bored, the reader is bored. That is an excellent copywriting tip I got from an old Facebook marketing manager I worked with who did help me with like running Facebook ads. I don't run them anymore, but when I did, she would be like, if you're skimming and you're bored, your reader is bored. You know what you're talking about best when you can explain it really shortly. I always like to say, if you can't say it in one sentence, you don't know what you're talking about, which is a riff on a quote from Einstein of, if you can't explain something in simple terms, you really don't understand the concept of it. Those are sort of the rough words of what he said. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but I really live by that. And I'm also toning it down. When I first got the deal for PS You're a Genius, I remember talking to a variety of agents when I was pitching for a literary agent, and a lot of them told me I needed to tone down my tone. And I didn't really understand what they were saying. And now with refinement and wisdom and time and age, I understand. I try to tone it down in the sense of like, my first take on the writing will always be severe and always be intense and always be like a little bit more in your face. And then I like go back and I read it and I'm like, okay, let's just like bump it down a notch. Like, it doesn't need to be so like intense is the word I would use. Like, I am an intense person by nature. Like, I'm very intense about my love for things. But like, if I remember like yesterday I was editing a post on Substack about some packaging I really liked. And I was just like really intense about how I was like talking about my love for it. And I might have felt that way like right when I wrote it after drinking a ton of coffee and feeling really buzzed and energized. But like when I read it now, I'm like, I don't need to basically be acting as if I'm typing in all caps. Like, I can just like bump this down a little bit. And that is why you need space and time from your writing. And you can kind of see it for what it is. And then you can kind of tone it down and make it shorter. That's the bulk of it. Tone it down, make it shorter. Keep it still, in your writing style, but just more palatable and smooth so that you are just sort of presenting it in a way that feels good when the reader reads it. Not like, oh my God, it's the best packaging in the entire world. Blah. More smooth, more calm, more chill, more professional. So yeah, give it a couple days. That's what I do with my Substack. I give it a couple days and then I then I'm ready to tee it up and get it scheduled. All right, now back in the Substack editor, once I've written it and drafted it, sometimes I'm ready to just publish it right away. Other times I kind of am waiting for the right time for it to get released. So sometimes things are coming out in the content calendar. And by the way, my content calendar is literally the pen and paper of my agenda. But right now I'm recording this in the middle of February. So anything Valentine's theme is coming out. And some of this stuff is going to kind of just wait to get scheduled for later or when it is time, aka something that's not seasonal. For example, this like random meme of Dakota Johnson and her holding this watermelon, which is just a funny little blurb I had written actually a while ago, but it's sort of waiting to go in the queue for the right time. When I'm done writing something, I write okay in the title. And that's sort of my hallmarker that if this magically got posted by accident, which has happened from time to time by me moving a little too quick or jotting something down wrong, if it magically got posted randomly, it would be okay. Like these are basically, they all have the green light. I would like to do one more pass on these before I hit schedule or before I hit publish, but it's helpful for me to know in a sea of drafts what is actually good and what items that are in the drafts have been in the drafts for a long time and I should just straight up delete. Like I've had my Substack for about 2 years now. There's articles I've been trying to write on and off for 2 years. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that go. I'm not gonna hold myself accountable to that absurd invisible standard because if I'm not excited and it's been 2 years, it can go right to trash. So having some sort of symbol to showcase in your drafts what is good and ready to get published versus what's just sitting there can help you decipher what can get deleted and what items you can kind of stop working on. And then the rest of the things should be kind of your templates kicking around. And that's sort of what a bit of the back end looks like. And then, yeah, basically I would click into this, I'd hit schedule, and then it would be off. I don't think there's any shame in scheduling your writing. I schedule a lot of my posts on Substack, mostly because at 7 a.m. when they come out on Tuesdays and Fridays, I am likely on a sales call. I'm probably on a call. I'm probably busy. I don't have time always to do that. So I think there's absolutely no shame in the scheduling game. If that helps you get things done, then definitely leverage it. On the back end, once the post is out, for me, I'm always looking at, do I love the title and do I love the pictures? And I always am sort of sometimes tinkering with that post-publish, mostly just because I want it to be as visually eye-catching. I always treat my Substack like it's a little online magazine. When I used to intern at an online magazine in college, we were always like, you're looking at things on the homepage back when digital media was just sort of starting and you're like, well, does this catch my eye or not? Like you want to give your posts the best wind possible to take off. So, you want it to have that in the sail of the sailboat, you want to give it wind. You want to have a good, strong image and a good, strong title. So feel free to edit those both or edit the post if you need to edit it. But to be honest, once it's up and once it's scheduled, I barely look at it unless I think the title is weak or the image is weak. 95% of the time, once the post is out, we're done. Like I always see it as like, that was a piece of work, it's off. That was a piece of work, it's off. Like you're kind of moving cans down the assembly line. And once you've quality controlled check that can is off. It can go to the supermarket and it will go where it needs to go, That's kind of how I treat it. Like once it's done, it's out the door and then I'm working on the next thing. Writing takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice. And the best way to get better at it is just to sort of keep doing it. My Substack has consistently gotten better over time in terms of the quality of the writing. And that's sort of my best tip I can really give you at the end of the day is to practice. Use the time that you have to just practice the craft. When I wrote love letters, I can't send. When I did the first draft of the manuscript, the start was so bad after I got to the bottom because I had spent all these hours writing and practicing that the end was so strong that I had to go back and redo the first half of the book. Same thing kind of goes with your work and your creative writing. Just practice and over time, it will improve. And I think that's it. I think this is a good place to conclude the video. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this, you are welcome to subscribe. If you are on Substack watching, you can subscribe to the Substack. It's A Year of Joy by Kelly Track. Posts come out twice a week or whenever I feel like it. Sometimes it's 3 a week if I got something really special. But yeah, thanks for being here. I'd love to know in the comments what you have taken away from this, and if you're working on any creative projects, or if you have any thoughts about stuff. I always take reader input and listener input and watcher input into consideration for future work. So thanks for being here, and I'll catch you back here soon. Bye for now.